He's got one foot in the frying pan and one in the pressure cooker. Believe me, as a bowler, I know that right about now, your bladder feels like an overstuffed vacuum cleaner bag, and your butt is kind of like an about-to-explode bratwurst.
Hey, do you mind? I wasn't talking when you were bowling.
Was I talking out loud?
Welcome to Munson's at the Movies. My name is Kyle. I will once again be your host, joined by the rest of the Munsons. Want to give them a wide berth.
He's what is called a born loser. A real Munson.
Talk a little bit about what's going on in their worlds. Welcome back, Warren.
Hey, thank you.
Hey, buddy.
The War Dog.
I had to take the time off to get caught up on everything DC to prepare myself for 4 hours and 2 minutes of the Snyder Cut. But seriously, I watched like a lot of the DC movies this past week.
James.
I had my first kickball game today. We won. I tried way too hard. I fell. I skinned my knee pretty seriously, and I pulled my thigh muscle. But we won, and that's what's important.
Leave it all out on the field.
What position were you playing, James?
I played pretty much every infield position. What I realized in kickball is that it's actually beneficial to bunt, and it's almost undefendable. So we played as many people in the infield as legally possible.
Bunch of athletic teams playing small ball over there on you, bud.
Well, I looked it up, and it's when it's like, how do you defend a bunt in kickball? Everyone's like, you're fucked, man. Like,
yeah.
You can't throw the ball that far. So if someone just drops it in front of home plate, if you don't peg them in the back, they're safe.
Case.
I have a lot of corrections to do in my life right now. I learned what OnlyFans was after my announcement last week. I was going to try to make some extra money, so I'm definitely not pursuing an OnlyFans career.
Yet.
Did you order your pirate costume on Amazon last week?
No, I didn't. I decided against the pirate thing, too.
Oh.
The other calculation I had wrong was Gabriel Byrne, who we're going to talk about tonight, is not the lead singer of the Talking Heads, nor is he in Bridesmaids. So I had a lot of catching up to do this week.
David Byrne.
Yeah, he's actually not related to Rose Byrne either.
Yeah.
Dispelling so many urban myths today.
I wish his name was Richard.
God. Rigby.
I will not be watching the Snyder Cut. I don't even know what that is, but I would imagine it's the director's cut to Justice League.
It's what he named his circumcision.
Didn't even see the original Justice League, so I'm going to miss out on this one too, unfortunately. But yeah, happy to be here with you guys, doing a little Gabe Byrne. One actor that I never thought we'd cover on this podcast, yet here we are.
On my end, I'm just slightly burnt because we got left at the altar by our first time ever by a guest. Got straight ghosted. So if you listened to the last episode, you know we should have a sixth person, but he's chosen not to be with us by ignoring us for the last 3 weeks.
Joke's on us.
That's not the first time you've been ghosted.
I'm fine. I'm not upset at all. I haven't taken it personally, not one bit. No, it'll be good. We'll talk about Gabe and then we'll have a good time. Our birthday is March 25th. Warren, what we got?
We'll start out with Sean Ferris. He's been in 3 of the shittier movies we've talked about. Yours, Mine, and Ours, Never Back Down, and Forever Strong. Each one of those features a separate Munson that we've discussed. So how old is Sean Ferris? Rigby, I don't expect you to know who we're talking about.
So I've watched the most Sean Ferris movies on this podcast, not by choice, clearly by design of the wheel. My guess is this guy is 42.
Oh.
I'm going to go 45.
Give me 39.
36, Warren.
Craig on the dot, 39.
Ooh.
Congratulations, Sean. Sarah Jessica Parker. Sex and the City, Failure to Launch, Family Stone, and Sex and the City 2.
Oh, smart.
56.
I'll say 55.
Give me 59.
54.
James wins, 56 on the dot.
Oh, nice.
Damn.
Good work, James.
Thanks.
And finally, we've got Jenny Slate from Parks and Rec, Big Mouth, Venom, and Alvin and the Chipmunks Chipwrecked.
I think we mentioned that one a couple episodes back with someone.
35.
32.
I got no idea who this is, so I'm going to go cool 40.
Jenny Slate's cool, people. Give me 33.
39.
Wow, really?
2 39-year-olds. That's really the birthdays. Not too much to pick from, but happy birthday, those people.
5 actors tossed onto the wheel. Those 5 were Jackie Chan, Melissa McCarthy, Idris Elba, Billy Bob Thornton, and Gabriel Byrne. And we are we're hitting Gabriel Byrne here. Probably the least of the favorites on that list. We'll dig into, hey, another Irish actor. We'll
For
talk
all
about.
3 people who are listening now, fuck the wheel.
Chris O'Dowd, lowest one ever, but he's in our most listened to episode, so who knows? The hate sometimes flows and gets people excited.
Hold on, you guys. We have a built-in audience with the Burnaholics.
This is
true.
The Burnaholics.
I'm feeling good about this.
Just mark it to them.
Yeah.
They may hate us and therefore share with each other how much they hate us, so we'll see. Well, we always start with a little trivia. James, what you got?
We're going to hear 2 truths and a lie. These are going to be 2 facts about Gabriel Byrne and 1 fact that is not about him, but is in fact about a member of the cast of Fast and Furious. First fact, played professional soccer in a youth development league before starting acting. Second fact, only one of his featured films has his character dying. Third fact, went to school to become a priest.
I'm going number 1, soccer.
I'm pretty sure he's a footballer, so I'm going with number 2. That seems like a wild fact that he's only died once, but that I think that's some other Fast and Furious character.
I think that is number 2 is the lie as well, because I think that's his co-star from Assault on Precinct 13, Ja Rule, who was the star of The Fast and Furious.
I'm going to say it was number 3, but that was actually Billy Bob Thornton, who I wish we were covering instead.
So we had the entire board covered there. So I'm just going to work my way down. So fact number 1 is true. He played professional soccer in a youth development league before he started acting. He actually played for a team named Stella Maris FC in Dublin, Ireland, which is known for its youth development. And on their website, he's the only non-athlete listed as a notable alumni. So they've produced like multiple Irish national football players, so they're really good. And he's the only one who is famous and not for playing sports. Fact number 3 is true. He went to school to become a priest. But when quoted, he actually said at the time that he quit due to his inability to give up being intimate with women. Later, he went on to say that he is no longer a religious man. When he was young, he was thinking of it from the practicality side of it. He just didn't think he could actually be abstinent. Fact number 2 is actually not true. Only one of his films featured characters where he has died. That's a Paul Walker fact. Paul Walker has died in Flags of Our Fathers. Gabriel Byrne has died 17 times on film.
That means I would have had to have watched 17 of his movies to figure that out. I did not do that.
I'm going to assume James found that little tidbit online and didn't peruse his entire filmography for that.
No, I watched every single one.
Thank you for your service, James.
You're welcome. I have a whole Excel sheet, the whole deal.
Did he die? Right. Yes or no?
Fast forward to the end. Okay, he's dead. All right, there we go. Snapshot and box office history case. What do you got?
As a lot of you guys that know how I evaluate a lot of these things would guess, he does not measure too well against the other actors we've looked at. And I think there's 2 primary factors because of that. One, the types of movies that he's cast in or that he selects. And then number 2 is the era when he's doing most of his more popular work. I was able to find 30 movies that we have box office data for that have some prominence for him. And of those 30, 15 of them lost money.
50-50, baby.
Second, of the 15 that he had, 8 of them brought in $1 million or less in U.S. box office.
Not great.
$1 million sounds like a shit ton of money, but when you're looking at nationwide releases, it's a pretty standard number. Of those movies that lost money, the one that catches my eye the most is Shade from 2003, which brought in a cool $25,000 at U.S. box office. Which isn't awful, but you are comparing that against a $10 million budget.
Ooh, that's bad.
He has 5 different movies that lost $10 million or more.
I'm going to do a review on one of them.
Yes, you are. In terms of box office success, his most prominent movie was The Name of the Father, which grossed $66 million against a $13 million budget, but he was only an executive producer on that. Out of the 32 other performers we've looked at, he comes in ranked 28th in Star Meter, 18th in critic and fan ranking, and 31st and 20th, respectively, in 2 different box office categories. Overall, he comes in at 30th, just ahead of Christina Applegate, Regina Hall, and behind Rene Russo.
Whoa.
Pretty scathing.
So not great.
The numbers don't lie, boys. The numbers don't lie.
Room for improvement is what I'm hearing.
There's work to be done there.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Case.
Yeah, man.
All right, so before we get into first feature film, it's kind of piggybacking a little bit on James and some of his trivia. So we've covered a few Irish actors. The last time we did a primarily Irish actor, and Chris O'Dowd didn't fare so well on the Munson Meter. And so I don't know if Gabe's going to buck that trend today. But he's born and raised in Ireland. As James mentioned, he would plan to become a priest. He studied linguistics and archaeology in college, and then after college taught some Spanish, some history, a bunch of odd jobs. Most famously, according to the Burnaholics website, put glass eyes in teddy bears at a factory, and was also a plumber. I don't know if the sexy variety or not, who knows, and a bartender somewhere along the way.
Probably. He's a good-looking dude, so probably.
He was popular amongst the housewives in the manufacturing towns.
I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was slaying in the
that's
Irish
why he quit the
countryside.
priesthood, dude.
Yeah.
The man's got game.
He's got game.
I gotta respect it. The guy going, I was gonna go into the faith, and I found out I couldn't get laid, so I said, "This isn't for me."
Let's be honest about the practicality of the job. It's tough.
James, I saw in an article in The Guardian, he said that he was on a vacation from his priesthood for a couple of weeks, and he got on a bus and he saw some ladies wearing miniskirts, and he decided at that point he could no longer be a priest.
Dude, is that true? That's awesome.
But he started acting at 29, so a late bloomer on that front. He started doing stage work in Dublin, mostly, which it's kind of interesting when you lean into his career. His early stuff was a lot of comedic roles on stage, and now he talks about no one will cast him in a comedic role. It's only drama at this point in his career. But early on, once he started getting onto the screen, he had a couple brief TV roles in Irish programming, Last of Summer and The Burke Enigma in 78. And then he did 5 smaller roles in movies, the first one being On a Paving Stone Mounted in 78 as well. Did his first recurring character in TV on the Irish soap opera, The Rordans, in 78, 79. And then he followed that up with another TV show character in one of what I learned is many historical characters that he's played throughout his career. He's in The Search for Alexander the Great as Ptolemy, and then he follows that up with an appearance in Excalibur as Uther Pendragon in 81, a movie that seemed like it had pretty decent reviews. I didn't see it, but I did read that it introduced Liam Neeson, Patrick Stewart, and Karen Hines as well, so it had a pretty decent little cast in 81.
Wow.
But that takes us to first feature film. 1985, so a couple years later, he is in Defense of the Realm, and Case has it.
Defense of the Realm is a 1986 British political thriller directed by David Drury, and I thought I was in for another just painful viewing experience, and spoiler alert, I enjoyed this movie, and I'll talk about some of the things I enjoyed. Roger Deakins was the cinematographer for this movie, and it was one of his earlier movies. And if you guys don't recognize that name right away, you will definitely recognize some of the movies he's done. A little movie called Shawshank Redemption, Fargo, Beautiful Mind, Skyfall, Sicario, and recently 1917. All of those movies are just beautifully shot. It was really interesting to see his work early, and you could tell early that this guy kicked ass at his job, and it's no shocker that you're looking at some of Deakins' work 30 years later, and he's still a great cinematographer and shooting great and beautifully shot movies. The movie Defense of the Realm follows Gabriel Byrne, who plays Nick Mullen, is a reporter for a British newspaper. He comes across a story where a prominent member of parliament is associated with this gal, and I never got a feel of whether or not it was an affair or they were friends or whatever, but she was associated with East Germany. So right there, like, I'm watching this movie and I'm like, okay, so there's landline phones everywhere. There's a massive, powerful newspaper industry going. East Germany is a thing, and they're talking about the Cold War. So like the movie, even though it dated itself with all those things, it still kept me into it. So it follows kind of him trying to go through and expose what's really going on, whether or not this guy was framed or whether or not this guy from Parliament was indeed working with the East Germans. And when I was watching the movie, it had some elements that reminded me of two other really good movies. One would be All the President's Men. If you haven't seen that, that's essentially, it is the story about Watergate. And then the other one, and just it kind of the espionage and the backroom workings of things, it had a feel of some spy game stuff. Thought of that movie a couple times as I was watching this. Byrne, got into a pretty good movie, and I enjoyed watching it. And then Kyle, one of the comments you had made to me was, you thought his acting was a little bit boring. Is that right?
I think he turns it up a little bit towards the end of the movie, but I think it's similar to a lot of the other roles he's in, where he's competent, but it's not. I don't know. It doesn't jump off the screen at you.
What they were trying to go for actually was they were trying to portray him as a reporter who was like completely in over his head and not able to tell the story that needed to be told. And then as he kind of goes throughout the movie, he gets more and more involved, and that could speak to that. But it's a pretty good film, and it's really watchable, and he does a pretty good job in it.
It's available on YouTube.
And it's available on YouTube.
It seems like one of those movies that Rigby would have seen like 20 times.
It's not, actually.
I'm shocked that he hadn't.
No, it's not. I wish I would have.
All right, so next couple of years, another historical character. He plays Christopher Columbus in Christopher Columbus. That was his first Hollywood role in '85. He's in 4 films over the next couple of years, the first one being a movie called Gothic. He plays Lord Byron. I think Craig watched most of this. I watched it today. It is the origin story behind Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And it's like about the night where the idea is conceived, and it's this madhouse acid trip origin story with Timothy Spall, Natasha Richardson, and Julian Sands. It was a bonkers hour and a half.
It's so crazy that it's tough to watch.
Fascinating effects. It's like spooky ghost stories, but gory. It's not what I expected when I went into kind of like a biopic feel movie.
If you guys remember when we were talking about Maya Rudolph, she was in the Bash Brothers, that Lonely Island Maid, and it was just so bizarre and so random.
Yes.
This had that feel.
Mm-hmm. He's pretty much the lead in the movie, and I like the work that he did. He takes some chances. His character is pretty eccentric. It's out there. I just wish he did more of that later in his career. It's almost like it's a little bit of a flash in the pan in the 80s at that point.
One of the things that makes it tough is, and we talked about this before, is a lot of times the actors were acting like they were in a play, and there's almost stage performing and not film acting.
This is very theater-like. Yeah. Especially his role. Very theater-like. But he comes from a theater background, so it makes sense early in his career. Those are the types of roles he was seeking out.
Mm-hmm.
So 87, he's in Julia and Julia. That's with Kathleen Turner and Sting. And then he started dating Ellen Barkin while he was filming Siesta in 87 as well.
Good for him.
Hey, Ellen Barkin, she was pretty spicy, pretty fine back in the day, too.
Yes, she was.
Yeah, I agree.
But that takes us to 1990 to his highest critic score, and that is one of Rigby's favorite movies, Miller's Crossing, and Warren is going to talk about it.
Miller's Crossing, 1990. Coen Brothers movie dealing with the time kind of around the Prohibition and everything. Good cast. Marcia Gay Harden, John Turturro, who is awesome in this.
Yeah.
Albert Finney and John Polito. They all do a good job in their respective roles. And then there's Gabriel Byrne, who's just a walking nincompoop. He's just this vessel for a plot. He's really vanilla, really boring. I don't care for him in it. The only reason he got this role is because I haven't heard him. Well, I'm sure at this time he was still kind of getting acclimated to like learning to speak English, like American English for American films. Mm-hmm. And so they were just like, hey, you've got an Irish background, just like speak English as best you can. He does a really good job, but he obviously has like Irish mannerisms and, wheelisms that he kind of drops into his speech all the time. So he's cast perfectly for it. Could they have picked any other Irish person to do it and gotten the same result? Yeah, probably. If they just wanted somebody to punch in the face like over and over and throw him downstairs and just have him sit there with a blank look on his face all the time, yeah, they got what they wanted out of it. To be honest, like, I understand why people like it. It's just not for me. It definitely fits the mold of like the noir, the crime noir, and I think you could probably list off like 15 or 20 other movies pretty easily that fall right around the same, the exact same plot. I enjoyed the score a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of out of place. It was a lot of times when it was kind of a serious thing. It made it very lighthearted. It was kind of jovial. There were some parts when I was laughing out loud. Like when Casper, his kid comes in and he interrupts him in a meeting and he slaps the shit out of his kid and his kid just starts bawling and he grabs his kid and he goes, "Oh, did someone hit you?"
Dude, John Polito in that movie is creepy as hell.
Yeah. But I really liked him in it because I could totally see him as that person. He's always sweating. He's like the Sean Miller of the movie, who's just like constantly sweating. Steve Buscemi's got a really small role, but John Turturro, like in the scene when he takes him out at Miller's Crossing and takes him out into the woods, like that scene alone of him, that's by far like the best acting in the whole movie.
Dude, I love Turturro.
Yeah.
There's some small roles like Sam Raimi has a really, really small role in it. Frances McDormand's in it and a really small capacity as well. And so like I totally understand why people enjoy the movie. It's just not for me. But in 2005, Time chose Miller's Crossing as one of the 100 greatest films made. That's just blasphemy. That's just not a thing for me.
That was me last week with Requiem for a Dream. Like, I don't know who's watching these movies and enjoying them. Because, like, I get the message they're going for, but, like, sometimes it's just a pain to sit through.
Well, it's also, like, in 2005, so it's 15 years after this comes out. I honestly think if the Coen brothers hadn't done it, it wouldn't be as popular as it is.
That's what I was going to say. It was going off the fact that the Coen brothers were on, like, fire at that point.
They'd done Barton Fink, and then they did this, and, then they really, got rolling. And, I think you could go back and say, especially on, like, Rotten Tomatoes, when all the, when the website came up after Rush Hour came out, all the reviews for it are from, like, 2015 on. And so if you have all this stuff to pick from and you're like,
people
I went back and watched this,
are going back for this type of movie.
Yeah. And I'm fine with that. It's just, again, it's just not for me. And that's, it's just him. I just don't like Gabriel Byrne.
I don't know. Like, I feel like his character development in the movie is really strong. If you don't like the actor and you don't like the guy, I can kind of understand why you would not really appreciate that as much as I do.
Maybe if I didn't know who he was, would I care as much? I don't know. Maybe it's just a situational thing.
Yeah, I understand that.
If you had said outside of this, you were just like, hey, I got this movie you should watch, and you get to watch that exclusive of watching movies from better actors, then I wouldn't go in it with a sour taste in my mouth. So.
I hear you, Warren, because his character, he comes off as intimidating, but he's not a violent person. That's not his character in there. And so coming off as intimidating without using weapons seems like a tougher sell.
I would agree that Gabriel Byrne, you could probably place just about any other powerful Irish actor from the time in there, and it wouldn't really change the movie. So I'm with you on that one, Warren.
I think if you put Liam Neeson in there and he's like kicking ass. Right. I know it's a little different, but if they redid it now and you put like Colin Farrell in there, he's talking about Professor Xavier and everything, I'm all about it.
Yeah, good work. Well, that's Miller's Crossing, highest critic score. We've got one movie we'll cover before lowest critic score, and that is, I think, his only movie that's on Disney Plus, and that's Shipwrecked. He plays Lieutenant John Merrick, plays the ship captain in that one. A little bit of a bad guy, not a great Disney movie. But he's all right. He's okay. He's fine. Again, you could probably replace him with people, but he does just enough to make you hate him. And I think otherwise they're lacking some star power in other areas that would It's not a Disney classic from that standpoint, but it's there for people to check out if they're interested. But that takes us to Byrne's entrance into Cool World, and that's his lowest critic score, 92.
Sweet.
James.
This is a movie that I don't know why, but I have a memory of my dad putting this movie on, realizing that it was horrific and definitely not for children, and then immediately taking it off. And then I got the flu like directly after. I don't know what age I was, but I know that situation happened. And I didn't realize it was for Cool World until I looked up Cool World. And I'm like, oh, that's the movie. Yes, that's why I couldn't remember. So that's the only memory I have of this movie. I would give you the plot, but Cool World is plotless. It's absurdly horny and it's stupid in like an insulting way, not like a funny way. If you want to have a good time watching bad movies, which I love certain bad movies, like some are so bad they're entertaining, you should not watch Cool World. It is not funny or entertaining. It is just confusing for no reason and horny for no reason. To give you kind of a background of what it is, it's similar to Who Framed Roger Rabbit in that it has like humans and cartoons interacting and with each other in a way that's like an adult setting. But that's where the similarities end. It has an amazing cast. Brad Pitt, who plays like a 40s style detective, who apparently his only purpose in the film is to make sure he cock blocks humans from fucking cartoons.
Accurate.
That's not a joke. That's a legit plot point. Major plot point, actually. Gabriel Byrne plays the artist who created these cartoons that are trying to fuck him. Specifically, one by the name of Holly Wood. And she's played by Kim Basinger. And the entirety of the movie's plot is based around Kim Basinger trying to fuck Gabriel Byrne. She succeeds. And then she turns into a human and goes to Vegas and tries to like bang all the other humans before she slowly turns into a cartoon. I made up none of that. That is the summary of this movie.
Noids don't fuck doodles.
Yeah, so a doodle is a cartoon and a noid is a human. Is that correct? Do I have that terminology correct?
That's right.
Yes.
That's Cool World. So you're welcome, guys. I watched that for everyone. I think I got the flu watching it the first time.
Yeah, I could see your dad putting this on and be like, oh, wait, oh my God, this isn't what I'm talking about. Then he put on heavy metal and he was like, oh, wait, no, this is even worse. I can't put on heavy metal.
I could see how in the first 5 minutes, if you put this movie on, you'd be like, oh, all right, it's kind of weird. But it's about minute 6 where a cartoon is having a very graphic sexual discussion with a human. And you're like, oh, right. Not for children. Got it.
Warren, this was the first Gabriel Byrne movie you watched, right?
Yeah.
I think you watched it the day you gave assignments because you're like, I learned that if you fuck an animated character, it will come to life.
Yeah. I mean, those are things they don't teach you in school.
They don't.
They do not.
But you can change that, Warren. You're on your way to a certification. So,
James, I don't mean to speak ill of your dad, but he did very little research in the movies that you watched as a kid.
No, it's becoming more and more clear to me that he would just go to whatever movie rental place was around at the time and be like, here's what I want to watch, here's what I want to watch, and then randomly just grab to the side and be like, and maybe for the 5-year-old, I don't know. And it's like whatever he grabbed was the other thing that came with.
I found a cool little nugget on Burnaholics.com where it said Gabriel Byrne's direct quote about his involvement with Cool World is he remembers the experience as like being sedated for 3 months.
That makes sense.
That's his take on being involved in that project. I guess hindsight's 20/20 there.
Not a ringing endorsement.
Brad Pitt's character is a cop who gets people in trouble for trying to bang cartoons, but he's got a cartoon like girlfriend that's trying to bang him the whole time. He's like, no, come on, this is like the one thing my character doesn't do. Stop it. and by the end of the movie, he's actually a cartoon, so it's okay in his eyes for him to
spoiler
girlfriend. It's like the worst movie I've ever seen. It's terrible.
And it's probably the one most of us have seen of all of Gabriel Byrne's projects, so I don't know what that means. But it's not good.
Dude, when they were doing the promotion for this, they made a 75-foot tall cutout of Hollywood and posted it near the Hollywood sign.
Didn't the neighbors complain?
Yes.
If you go to the next part of that article, it's the neighbors complained because this promotion was going on during the LA riots after the Rodney King beating.
Oh, shit.
We have to promote the movie, James.
Yeah. It was a nice $27,000 donation on behalf of Rodney King. Thanks, guys. Yeah, this movie's going to do great.
Oh my Lord.
Listen, guys, it's a cool world, okay? We'll just relax. I know tension is a little high right now, but, come watch this cartoon masterpiece. It's going to be fine. All right, so that's Cool World.
Don't see this movie ever.
It's on Amazon. Go watch it.
No,
I
people should go see it. I agree.
Yeah, they want to be able to relate to what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. That should be a prereq to listen to this podcast. You have to watch Cool World first. Our next category is 98, so we've got a 6-year gap to hit on. First and foremost, he was in Into the West as Papa Riley with his wife, Ellen Barkin. It's a popular Irish film. And as Craig had mentioned, he produced In the Name of the Father, the most popular, I guess the most successful box office-wise of the films he was involved in. He owns his own production company. I don't know if it started in 93 or just a few years before that, but he's done quite a bit of producing over the years. 94, he's in Royal Deceit or Prince of Jutland, I guess, depending on where you find it. He plays Fengi. This is a movie with Christian Bale. This is the Helen Mirren one that you had mentioned earlier, Craig. Kate Beckinsale, Brian Cox. So very similar. It's right about the same time as Much Ado About Nothing, which we covered on the Emma Thompson episode. So kind of a period piece with a bunch of big-time actors. The story is about the inspiration for Hamlet.
Hamlet, yep.
I note here that Gabriel Byrne has the Chris Evans from Cellular haircut in the movie. And if you've ever seen Cellular, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. For some reason, the early 90s, he's rocking the same haircut no matter the role. And it's completely out of place.
It's a style choice.
Everything else is period except for Gabe Byrne's hair, I guess. I don't know. But he's okay. I mean, he's a bad guy in that one. Similar to Shipwrecked, like not a great movie. He plays a decent bad guy. I don't know if anybody else saw it, but very young Christian Bale. If you like Christian Bale, it's a good one to check out. He releases his autobiography in 94 called Pictures in My Head. He follows that up by crossing over with Willie Hurt in Trial by Jury. And then he's in Little Women as Friedrich in 94.
And I thought he was delightful in that role. So Warren could fuck off.
He is good in that role.
I think this role's like perfect for him. It's like the intellectual, flirty, intelligent older man. Like he's nailed it.
Did I say he was going to be bad in this?
No, I just figured you would hate it because it's him. The first Little Women's a great movie, man.
Well, I couldn't tell you. I've never watched any of the 38 iterations of Little Women.
Well, the last two, very good.
Was this the second to last one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's been done 3 times.
You're right. I guess the last two that I acknowledge in the Little Women universe.
Yeah. The LWCU.
Yeah, everyone knows all about it.
Yeah.
James, you know how he got the role? Hugh Grant sent in his casting tape, and they said he was too handsome.
Get the fuck out.
They had to intentionally not give it to Hugh Grant because he was too handsome.
He is very handsome.
He settled on Gabriel Byrne.
Dude, he crushed the role, man.
Yeah, he settled all the way to the bank for being ugly.
I talked about another movie. So this movie came out when I was in my heyday working at the movie theater in my hometown. And 7 Days and Nights with Harrison Ford was a movie I got in trouble with during selling tickets. And my boss started screaming at me. I also got in trouble with this movie because patrons started complaining about me to my boss because I tried watching this. And as a 17-year-old guy, it was definitely not my cup of tea. And couples would come up to watch this movie. And I'm like, can I help you? And they'd go, 2 tickets for Little Women. And I would yell, why? And everybody'd be like, just give us the tickets. Just give us the tickets. And so I had more than one person complain about me selling tickets to them that I got angry that they bought tickets for Little Women.
Dude, I would hate to be your manager at a movie theater. Like, can you stop shouting at our patrons, please?
and I would look right at the guy too when I would say it. I would go, why? But that's my story about Little Women.
James, I read reviews of it that said he was lovely in it as well. So
Yeah.
you're not the only one. He follows that up with his role as Keaton in The Usual Suspects in 95.
I do think they could have, if you put someone in for Byrne here, I don't think that changes the dynamic in the movie. Kind of like we discussed with Miller's Crossing.
Mm-hmm.
He's not that level of actor.
And he was lucky to be cast in this because the cast is
So good.
it's a very well-rounded cast, and that's sort of what you remember about the movie because, it's character driven from about 6 different people. But I don't think he's
That's like kind of unfair, though. It's like, yeah, we asked the question, could we replace any actor? And we're like, oh, maybe this is really well written and well directed. And then we're like, and this guy's kind of replaceable. It's like, I thought they're all replaceable. I don't want to hold it against him that he's in a great fucking movie.
I could have listed every single actor in this except for Gabriel Byrne.
Okay, that's different. Yeah.
I knew the names of all of them, but Gabriel Byrne.
Is that just because he's not as premier as the other ones in terms of the rest of their career after?
If Gabriel Byrne was in Biodome like Stephen Baldwin, it'd be a different story, but he's not.
Chaz
I'm not going to
Palminteri's
disagree.
in A Bronx Tale, and as an Italian, you're handed that at the age of 12, and so of course I know who Chaz Palminteri is.
Did you just grab my ass?
grab my
he's
ass.
great.
I know your tricks, Dewey.
I think his style was good, and I think he was good in this because everybody was so like eccentric, and he was so very debonair and almost, I don't want to say smooth, but it worked in with that character of like, man, this guy is so cool. Maybe he is the guy we need to be afraid of.
He plays on that personality in that show 000 on Amazon. It's very similar, where it's like
Okay.
a little seedy but smoothish for the more level-headed bad guy, and it's very similar character.
I think if you were to CGI a broom in his scene, like in every scene that he's in, I don't think you'd miss a beat in this movie. Just to replace him with a broom, and I think the movie still carries the same weight.
Now, are you talking about a noid or a scribble?
You can't, no. By all means, don't bring any noids. Everyone knows that.
The most important thing that he did in this movie was play the flashback scenes of Kaiser Sose.
It's a very big part of the movie. I don't know. I feel like you guys are hating on
I liked him in it. I do.
Yeah.
But I think everybody in that movie, it was so well written and so well done. I think, anybody would have done well, but I do think he did well in this movie, and I am a fan of him in this movie.
Also 95, he's in 1 minute of screen time in Jim Jarmusch's Dead Man as Charlie. I watched it. It's a pretty abstract movie. I mean, it's a Jim Jarmusch movie, but he's in that very briefly.
Yeah, he doesn't have a big role. I just didn't know what the fuck was going on. It's a 2-hour movie, and I couldn't explain to you the plot after it was.
It's very abstract.
What's his role in that? I don't really remember his role in that.
He plays the boyfriend of a girl that Johnny Depp is hooking up with, who walks in, they have a little showdown, and Johnny Depp shoots him.
I mean, it's like a Western with a psychedelic Neil Young soundtrack. It's kind of a unique movie, but I was just confused by it.
95, he crosses over with Angelica Houston in Buffalo Girls, which is available on YouTube. He's rocking a Southern accent in that one, so if you want to go figure out if you think Gabriel Byrne can rock a Southern accent, by all means, check it out on the tube. And then kind of off the heels of some of those projects, especially Usual Suspects, he hosts SNL in 95. He just pokes fun at Irish stereotypes. It's kind of a fun little deal.
It is entertaining. It's pretty entertaining.
He's standing up there talking about how Irish actors are really becoming prominent in the States, and all of a sudden Colin Quinn comes out in a potato costume and another SNL character's out in a whiskey bottle, and they're dancing behind him. Damn. And he's, they're just having a good time. The music's real jovial, and then he starts talking about how those stereotypes are harmful, and they feel really awkward, and they stop dancing, and the music changes. Then he brings it back to being a positive. They start dancing again, and so he kind of keeps it going back and forth. So it's kind of a fun little 3-minute video you can also check out on the YouTube. But hey, good for him hosting SNL on the heels of Usual Suspects. Probably say 10 of the actors we've covered, if that, have hosted SNL at this point.
Yeah, I think that's being generous.
That it might be 5.
Maya
honestly.
Rudolph every single time.
96, he's in Mad Dog Time as Ben London. It's probably one of his more eccentric characters that he's had. Rigby, I know you're a big fan of Ebert, and this was on Ebert's most hated movies of all time list. He absolutely fucking hated Mad Dog Time because it's a Richard Dreyfuss movie and it is just balls to the wall weird. And
Great cast too.
Great cast.
the three main characters are named Mick, Nick, and Rick, I think, are the three. And the whole time,
Vic in there?
Vic, that's it. And Gabe Burns' character just keeps using alliteration the whole time, and it gets really old very quickly. So people do not like this movie at all. It's a fun role for him because it's very different from a lot of the other stuff he's done,
Yeah.
and he's funny. But the movie itself it's definitely a bit of a drag unless you're like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Also, 96, he wrote the movie Dragged, and that was the first television drama in Irish to be in Gaelic. It coincided with the launch of the TG4 station. That's pretty cool, him doing some groundbreaking work on the Irish side. And then in 98, he is in The Man in the Iron Mask in a key role. 98 as well, he's in Enemy of the State as Brill.
I love Enemy of the State. I do not remember him in that movie at all.
It's a tiny, he's a cab driver, and he's trying to pick him up.
Strip searches Will Smith, and that's it. That's like his. Isn't that the scene where he says like, give me your stuff?
Yes.
Or,
okay.
yeah.
Now
And
I know
then
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But then then he's revealed that he's just an imposter, and Gene Hackman is obviously the real
Is that
guy.
the only scene he's in the whole movie?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it.
Which was kind of shocking because he had a decent career going at this point, and he's making like cameos, which is kind of surprising.
That movie is awesome too. I hope we get to cover it with
I agree.
Jack Black next week.
And that goes to our replacement largest audience gap, Stigmata.
This was an interesting movie to watch. The plot of the movie is a woman played by Patricia Arquette. She's a hairdresser. She gets sent a cursed rosary from her mother from a market in Brazil. And when she receives the rosary, she starts feeling the same wounds that Christ felt when he was crucified on the cross. And Gabriel Byrne plays Father Andrew Kiernan, who's an investigator for the Vatican, who basically his job is to travel the world to investigate sort of supernatural things that happen within the church. I didn't know about his background in the priesthood.
Yeah.
So that actually made this role kind of cool for me because he really does do a good job in it.
Yeah.
He's obviously he's a priest, so he's straight laced and he's serious. And, there's not really any humor in the movie because it's a supernatural horror movie. But I didn't hate this movie as much as I thought I was going to. It was it's a really unique, the way it's edited is really cool too. It's like super in your face for like kind of a late 90s thriller type movie. I'm looking at the critic score now, 22 on Rotten Tomatoes, 63 audience score. I'd probably give it like 50 if I were scoring it.
Nice.
And I think Byrne is good in this movie, and Patricia Arquette's good too. It's a lot of, I was just reading some reviews, and apparently I'm not a religious person. I'm not Catholic, but apparently the idea that like a rosary could lead to stigmata is like one of the most like outlandish things in the church.
Your bio going on some rant, so we could just ignore the unbelievable religious aspects of it.
Yeah.
How does the Catholic Church view this movie? That's usually how
Huge fans.
judge films like this.
It caused some outrage among them, obviously, because a stigmata is, which I didn't really know a lot about. It's apparently only happens to deeply religious people and not like atheists like Patricia Arquette is in this movie.
Yeah.
So that's one thing about it that they were really up in arms about, is like a person can't go through this type of experience unless they're deeply committed to their faith, basically. It's not something you can get from a rosary that is purchased at a supermarket in Brazil,
That's how my cousin got it, so.
Are you saying I could get it, Rigby?
Yeah, anybody.
Yeah.
Sure.
Anybody could.
That's what the movie's about.
Not according to the Catholic Church, but according to Stigmata, you could.
Sure.
It was an intense movie. I was kind of blown away with how graphic it was,
Yes.
which obviously, you're dealing with the crucifixion of Christ. Like that's a pretty graphic scenario right there. But to sort of put that in modern times, I think was kind of cool. And it's a cool premise for a movie if you take it for what it is, knowing that it's obviously a very, unrealistic supernatural horror movie. But I enjoyed it. I would definitely side more to the audience and the critics. And I thought Byrne was a good cast for this role. his priesthood background lends credibility to it for sure.
Yep. His whole background, lends credibility to it because he's a skeptic.
Right.
Yeah.
As a priest. And then the other point you talked about, Rigby, that I think adds to the story is the fact that she's an atheist.
Yeah, for sure.
Like that, to me, adds an element to that story. I enjoyed this movie. I watched it when it first came out, and I've always liked it. And I think Rupert Wainwright is the director.
He is.
That adds another whole layer to it. I'm glad you got that movie and we got a chance to talk about it.
Rigby, what if I told you that he was nominated for a Razzie for his role?
I wouldn't be that. So I know the next movie we're going to talk about is like End of Days, and he was nominated in that for a Razzie, and that was...
End of Days stunk.
Back-to-back Razzie.
That was definitely much more deserving than his role in this.
I agree.
I think probably because when the movie did come out, it was thought of to be so outlandish that's probably why he got nominated for that. I don't think it was so much of his individual performance.
Okay. So 99, you all just mentioned it. His number 2 IMDb credit is his role as the man in End of Days, which he also got a Razzie nom for Worst Supporting Actor.
This movie stinks.
It's bad.
Man.
Just boring.
He goes on the other side of the good versus evil spectrum, right? He goes from the faith side to the devil side.
And doesn't have a lot of speaking lines in it, from what I recall. I mean, he gets possessed by the devil in like the first 5 minutes of the movie, and then it's him just kind of watching things unfold as the movie goes on, I would say.
This was when I first realized Arnold's career was slowly coming to an end, and it was sad.
Yeah, man. I was just going to say Schwarzenegger had some sort of a magic spell over Hollywood because, this is rough.
Yeah, it stunk. And then I was like, oh no, man, that's probably it for him. And don't worry, his life turned out fucking great. But
yeah,
it was sad to see an action star just kind of fade like this.
I remember Gabe Byrne's character because right after he gets, he goes to the bathroom and then the devil comes in and possesses him. And then the first thing he does when he walks out is he makes out with this guy's wife at the table and grabs her breast.
Yeah.
It's the most uncomfortable fucking thing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that would have been a weird scene to shoot for him, for sure.
That was the first scene I found when I looked online. It's him coming out, making out with some chick, exposing her breast, and I was like, oh, so it's that kind of movie. All right, interesting.
So, and for that movie, Sam Raimi and Guillermo del Toro were initially offered it, but they turned it down. And the role of Jericho Kane, Arnold's role, was written for Tom Cruise.
Oh my god!
Oh wow!
But he chose to do Magnolia instead, which might have been a better role.
Yeah, smart move.
Just barely.
Just a little bit.
The breast scene is jarring, so you remember that.
Final fun fact: this movie almost grossed $66.6 million, which would have been 666.
That would have been dope.
It was $66.9 million.
So we'll enter into the 21st century. 2000, he's in a recurring role in Madigan Men as Benjamin. Also executively produced that one under his production company Plurabelle Films. 2000, he also makes a return to the stage in A Moon for the Misbegotten. A New York Times columnist said Mr. Byrne's long third-act monologue is the stuff of theatrical legend. Haven't seen it, so I don't know if that's true. I cut out a little bit in there, but it's available. That quote is fully available on Burnaholics.com, so you can check that out.
Is Mr. Byrne's long third act monologue the prequel to Billy Lynn's long halftime walk?
It sounds like it. If it is, it only goes downhill after that.
Got it.
Cool World is the only movie I've watched so far that's worse than that movie. Cool World is the worst, but Billy Lynn is number 2.
Give it 5 episodes until you get back to lowest critic, James, and we'll see if we can get you there. And then 2002, he's in a movie called Virginia's Run. He plays Ford Lofton, and the only reason I mention this, he just plays a dad character, and he's perfectly competent in that. But I'm watching the movie, and at the end, he crosses over with most of the cast of the Trailer Park Boys. It doesn't make any sense. It's 2002. It's an American-made film. And then all of a sudden, in this horse race, all you see is Julian and Ricky yelling out of nowhere, and Jim Leahy, a.k.a. John Dunsworth, playing a cop. And it's the most random cameos of all fucking time.
That's awesome.
It makes zero sense, but it was like the coolest cameo I've seen in a long time. Just out of nowhere, the Trailer Park Boys in a movie about horses. There's got to be a cool backstory to that. That's all I'm trying to say. I just don't know what it is. So if you're listening, let us know.
Yeah, please.
Let us know if you have the story. 2002, he does a crossover with Tim Roth and Emmett's Mark, and Then in '03, he's in Shade, a movie that Craig had mentioned earlier. He plays a poker hustler manager. And then in 2005, he's in a movie called Wawa, not the restaurant gas station that makes delicious subs and other ready
That's too bad.
to made order food.
Yeah.
I heard it's great.
They should make a movie about that place.
It's a delicious little place.
Yeah, it's called Clerks.
Oh, yeah, you're right. They did.
So Wawa, I laugh about the title. It's one of the better roles I've seen of him. So I think it's on Prime. It's either Prime or Tubi and Tubi. He plays a character named Harry. He's drunk for like 75% of the movie. It's directed by Richard E. Grant. It's about his life story from Swaziland, and he's played by a young Nicholas Hoult. And Emma Watson's in it, and she's great in it. It's a pretty solid movie, and his character actually has some decent depth to it. One of the better roles I saw, because I saw some really bad roles along the way, and it has pretty decent reviews. So check it out. Wawa, WAH-WAH. Interesting one. '06, he's in Jindabyne as Stewart, a role that he got some awards, love, in critic circles for. And then also in '07 is when he gets recognized by some larger award bodies. So first, he gets a Lifetime Achievement in Acting from the Dublin International Film Festival. And he also got an honorary degree from Trinity College Dublin for outstanding contributions to Irish and international film. So Ireland said, Gabe, you have been doing good work, so we're going to give you some cool, prestigious awards in '07. So good for him. He follows that up. '08, he is in a stage production, Camelot, plays King Arthur. Again, he seems to love to play these historical characters for the New York Philharmonic. And he followed that up with his role as Dr. Weston in 2008 to 2010's In Treatment, which he got a Golden Globe win for. He was nominated twice, and he was named TV's latest Dr. McDreamy by the New York Times.
This is kind of a cool show. I think it's like honestly still relevant today because I think mental health is sort of more, people are recognizing the importance of it now more than ever. But the premise of it is cool. It's basically just his life with these therapy sessions for like 6 or 7 different patients, I think. And each one is like a different episode. And he's great in it. I've only seen one season, but he was deserving of the accolades that he got from it for sure.
Yeah, he got it. I mean, Nam too. I don't think I mentioned that as well, but of all the roles he's done in his career, other than some of his Tony work on the theater side, in terms of film and television, this is his most award-nominated role over the years.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
He also talked about it being the most challenging work he's done. He said he would get 35 pages of dialogue every 2 days, and that it was just extremely taxing for him.
Yeah.
It's set up in a way that's like a play or a stage. Basically, it's just 3 people in a room, 2 or 3 people in a room for a half hour. So that's probably why he felt comfortable in that role, even if it was a lot of work. I would imagine that's why he enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. 2009, someone made a documentary about his life called Stories from Home. And then also in 2011, he was named the first ever cultural ambassador for Ireland. So that's pretty cool. Again, they love him in Ireland, clearly. But maybe it'll lead to some clicks for the episode because the people who love Chris O'Dowd over there will listen to that episode like crazy at one point.
On repeat.
Yeah, right. And that takes us to Largest Critic Gap, our last featured review, and that is I, Anna. It isn't actually his largest critic gap. I don't think we could find the actual largest critic gap. So, judge that however you will. But I, Anna is a 2012 noir film. The split's not huge. And I think Warren could probably speak to this as someone who dug into the Rotten Tomatoes side for his stuff. There probably weren't a lot of critic gap options because there aren't probably a lot of his films that have better critic scores than audience scores.
Yeah.
If anything, it's probably flipped the other way. Where critics fucking hated it and audiences might have liked it a little bit more.
Yeah.
The director of I, Anna is Barnaby Southcombe, which is just a fantastic name. He is the son of Charlotte Rampling, who is the lead actress in the movie. I think that's the only reason she's in it, because her son is directing it, his first-time director. Charlotte plays Anna, a divorcee caught in the middle of this noir thriller. She falls for the detective who's investigating the case. His name is Bernie. Surprise, surprise, he's played by Gabriel Byrne. He's also a divorcee and an insomniac. Basic gist of the movie is he's investigating a crime that she's involved in. Early on, he just becomes interested in her as a divorcee, as she's a divorcee, and, I'm lonely and horny, and I'm just going to go out of my way to kind of stalk her and get to know her more, and eventually he finds out he's in a little too deep, and she's definitely a prime suspect in this particular case, but he is way too deep into this unethically speaking and has to deal with the ramifications of that. So that's the general gist of the movie. The way the movie works, the timeline, it jumps back and forth, so it gives you a little glimpse as to what happened in the murder, right? And it just reveals a little bit more every 10 minutes or so in the movie. So you as the viewer are trying to figure out, like, what did she actually do? His role in Iana is like his career summed up. He's perfectly competent in the role. He's fine. He's not extraordinary. He's not bad. He's whatever. It's a small little noir picture that probably didn't cost much money to make. And I get why critics liked it and audiences were just a little bit lower. So there's not much else to share there. That's Iana, largest critic gap. So let's round this out. We got 8 years left of his career, so the most recent years. 2013, he's in Vikings as Earl. Again, more historical characters. He's in Louder Than Bombs, a little indie film with Jesse Eisenberg and Isabel Huppert. Not a ton of people saw it back in the day, but it is available on Prime, and I like the movie. It's a pretty decent little flick. He has to play some serious nuance because the whole concept is his wife was a wartime photographer who committed suicide, and he's having to deal with the personal ramifications of that and also with his two sons who are handling it very differently and in their own weird and dysfunctional ways. And so he's trying to balance being a dad, but also
That does sound interesting.
trying to date. Yeah, it's definitely not a feel-good film by any stretch of the imagination, but it's very similar to what we're going to talk about in his Hereditary role, where he plays that kind of role pretty well, where there's some nuance to it, but he's not going to jump off the screen at you from that standpoint. Check it out if you get a chance. He's in The 33. He's in Carrie Pilby, which is available on Netflix. Plays the dad in that. He punches Professor in the face in that one. That's the highlight of his acting in that particular film. He's in No Pay Nudity, which is supposed to be the largest critic gap. Take note of that. Marco Polo, again, another historical piece. And then he gets another Tony nom in 2016 for his role in Long Day's Journey into Night. But again, that takes us to 2018, Hereditary, as I mentioned a minute ago. And he plays Donald, Toni Collette's husband.
Hereditary is one of those horror movies that you watch it once, you say, wow, that was awesome, and then you never watch it again because it hurts to watch this movie. It is like, I described in the group chat, it's like getting punched in the stomach. You're like, oh, okay, all right. I don't want that to happen again. But then as you're watching the movie, you're like, yeah, I was scared the whole time, but I am not gonna enjoy that flick once more. And I thought he was great in it. But the real star of the movie, in my eyes, is Toni Collette.
Yeah,
she's amazing.
Horror movies don't get recognized by the Academy ever, but she 100% should have gotten an Oscar nomination for Best Actress. She's unbelievable in that movie.
Yeah, James, you couldn't have said it better. Like, if someone's like, hey, I like horror movies, that's the only movie I think about. It's that and, like, Midsommar.
Yeah, both Ari Aster movies. Yeah.
I thought Hereditary blew Midsommar out of the water.
100%.
But, I mean, holy shit.
James, did we see this together in theaters?
We did.
We did, right? Yeah.
Yep. And then I suggested that my dad should see it, knowing full well he would hate it.
A little payback from Cool World.
Yeah, and he hated it.
You remember Cool World 14 years ago, Dad? Go fuck yourself.
He asked about Midsommar when that came out. He's like, is this any good? I was like, it's by the guy who did Hereditary. He's like, okay. I was like, you remember that one scene in Hereditary you didn't like? He goes, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to watch this. I was like, yeah, it's exactly just like that.
2018, he's in Maniac, which is a series that's available on Netflix. He plays Jonah Hill's dad in that movie.
I liked it. I thought it was cool.
Emma Stone too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's kind of like a trippy show.
It's like shown from the perspective of people with like severe mental illness dealing with it via drugs in the future. It's pretty cool.
Also 2018, the other category we were supposed to cover, largest audience gap, was supposed to be an LA Minute with Kiersey Clemens. Again, we could not find it, so we covered something else in its place. He is in War of the Worlds as Bill in 2019 in a recurring character role. And then he is a detective character in Lost Girls, which is also available on Netflix, premiered at Sundance 2 years ago. Pretty decent film. I guess that's probably the third or fourth time he's worked with Amy Ryan. I think we mentioned she's in a couple TV shows he's done, and she was in Louder Than Bombs as well. She plays a teacher in that one too. So that seems to be an actress he tends to work with pretty often, pretty comfortable with. But that takes us to 000, which is the show that James had mentioned before. It's on Prime. It's got pretty high ratings. He plays a shady businessman. He's only in like the first 2 episodes, I think, shipping some coke.
What I've seen so far is good. I watched the first 2 and I was like, oh, okay. And you could ascertain why he's not in the rest of the show after that. And then but the show itself was good, so I'm excited to watch the rest of it. It's based on a book. It seems like a cool concept. It shows the perspective of drugs in the world from like the suppliers, the buyers, the brokers, the dealers, and then like the users. And Gabriel Byrne's character is a broker who's like a shipping broker. And he realizes he can make so much more money if he brokers coke deals instead of ships like normal things. And so he's playing like the shady businessman who's clearly like a veteran at this, and very similar to his role in Usual Suspects, where you just because of the vibe he gives off, you just kind of buy that he's, a veteran at this.
And as we rounded out a movie that I don't know anything about, but the Burnaholics seem to love it, and that's Death of a Ladies' Man. I think it's based on Leonard Cohen's work. He's in that film that just came out in 2020.
Oh, yeah.
The Burnaholics on that website, all about Death of a Ladies' Man, I've noticed. Big fans.
Never heard of it, but now I'll check it out.
Big fans.
Yeah. Kyle, I saw an interview. He was talking about Leonard Cohen, and he said that Leonard Cohen can cover every single emotion within 7 notes. And that was kind of the backstory of how he got involved with that project, was the admiration of Leonard Cohen.
There you go.
It's pretty cool.
I like it. And then we'll round it out with he just wrote a new memoir called Walking with Ghosts. And it's inspired by Gaelic storytellers and their craft. And he's done some really interesting interviews where he talks about how like these traditional Irish storytellers have inspired him in a lot of ways and how he tries to incorporate that into his work. So lots of stuff out there. It seems like a good interview. But that gets us to 2021 and the top performances and hopefully a pretty decent little list.
Yep. So I got this one from Irish Central, which is an Irish news source, obviously. And it came out right around the time that Death of a Ladies' Man did. So January 2021.
Oh.
And it's just movies. There's 10 on here. We haven't discussed like half of them. So
That's okay, though.
I'll give you that.
Miller's Crossing. That's it. I'm done.
Miller's Crossing's on there.
Cool World.
Cool World is not on here.
No.
Is it numerical, Rigby, or is it just like 10 rolls?
Just 10 rolls, not numerical.
Wawa.
Usual Suspects.
Usual Suspects, yep. Wawa is not on here, Kyle.
Oh, lies.
Is Defense of the Realm on there?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a good movie.
Louder Than Bombs.
Louder Than Bombs is on here as well.
Nice.
Little Women.
Little Women is on here.
Ooh.
Of course.
Death of a Ladies' Man, since we had already talked about it.
Nope.
Stigmata.
Nope.
Man in the Iron Mask.
Nope.
Hereditary.
Hereditary is not. I wish it was, but it's not.
That's a joke. Fuck this list. Throw it out.
Into the West.
Into the West. Nice job.
Okay.
So I think we're missing 2 or 3.
How many of them did we mention?
2 of the 4 we were missing. We mentioned.
So think of the Irish stuff early on, because this is an Irish list. Gothic.
Is Royal Deceit in there?
Oh, there's no way.
No, but think of the movie that we talked about that had a lot of famous Irish actors in it back then, or famous English and Irish
Gothic.
actors. Nope.
Excalibur.
Yes. Nice job.
There you go. Okay. So another.
And then
early one.
Dead Man is on here. I don't really know
What?
why, but
He's in
I
it for a
know.
minute.
I know.
What are the other 2, Rigby?
Spider, which is a David Cronenberg movie, which we didn't talk about, and then Frankie's Starlight from 1995.
So what's funny are those 2 or 2 that I had in the show notes, and I just deleted for time.
Yeah, well,
So
there
you go.
there's
Funny.
we didn't see him anyway, so I think that's a good thing.
The way the Munson Meter works, we rate every actor on a scale of 0 to 100 based on a variety of factors that can include longevity, project choice, pop culture impact, acting range, awards footprint, if they have any other talents, their personal life, comedic chops, box office success or lack thereof, and anything else that matters to us. And we'll get started with Rigby this week.
I think he's a good actor. He's obviously got the chops in a pretty wide range of things, TV, stage work. You mentioned, Kyle, that's sort of his forte. Memorable roles on screen. I don't really think you can really go that far. I don't think, like we mentioned, in a lot of movies, I think if you plug somebody else in, I don't think it changes the dynamic of the movie. I'll be honest, I was going to give him a lower score, but then I read some stuff about his memoir, and he sounds like he's had a really interesting life.
Yeah, sounds like a good dude.
he's really honest about like battling alcoholism and depression and stuff. And at the end of the day, I mean, the guy's had a good career for almost 40 years now, longer than 40 years now. So that's pretty cool. So all that being said, I'm going to give him a 76.
All right, Case.
I like a lot of things about Gabriel Byrne, and I do think he is a good actor. I don't know that he always stands out in performances. And then there are some areas that are tough to compare him against other people that we've looked at. One area that I actually like him in is his longevity. If you look at some of the really early movies in his career and you're looking at some of the really late stuff, he has really evolved as an actor. In terms of the range that he performs with, I don't think that's great. But the one area that I'm going to give him massive credit in, he's really a pioneer in the Irish acting world, in the Irish film community. He's blazed a trail for performers to follow in, and that's tough to do. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to measure him up against some of the other measurables that I look at. And because of that, I'm going to give him a 64.
All right, Warren.
He gets points for longevity and having his name associated with a couple movies that I like. Aside from that, there's really nothing. He just doesn't bring anything to the movies for me. Very replaceable in everything. And honestly, if it weren't for this, if you said Gabe Byrne, I wouldn't be able to pick out a single movie that he's in, which it is what it is. He's not going to score higher than Chris O'Dowd for me. He at least makes me laugh. Gabriel Byrne gets a 43 from me.
All right, James.
You guys have said a lot of what I think here. He's associated with a bunch of movies that I love. I think where I started to like him a little bit more is similar to what you mentioned, Rigby, is he seems like a good guy in his personal life, outspoken against the Catholic Church and how he was sexually abused as a young kid. And I think that's impressive for someone his age to come out and do that and be that outspoken to the point where he actually was made like an ambassador to Ireland. That's impressive. Being 25 years sober is very impressive. I appreciate someone owning up to that later in life as well. And then I found out he has the same birthday as me, and that's the second person that we've reviewed who has the same birthday as me, so he gets a little bump for that as well. But all in all, I give him a 59.
The old birthday bump. All right, I'll round us out. So I think it's hard to ignore that most of his films have pretty poor ratings. And as Craig talked about earlier, his critical reception, box office, not great. Definitely in the lower tier of actors we've covered. Things I do like, I like his evolution from a faith and philosophical standpoint. He lives in Maine. He's an atheist. I like his philosophy on life of like the world's just in a natural state of chaos, and we as humans we create religion, laws, and these morals, and it's our effort to make order of the world. And I like that. It aligns with how I kind of view the world myself. So I jive with him there. As a very Irish human myself, I appreciate that he's so connected to the country and the culture, and I recognize that his contributions are there, and he's obviously gotten some awards for that too. For me, and I think I've mentioned it once, he's like a 6 out of a 10 movie for me. It was like, it's decent. It's not one that I love and I'm going to go out of my way to recommend to people, but does good enough work to where I don't think he's necessarily a detriment in most of his roles. But it's not like Keith David last week where we talked about, like, Keith David jumps out at you pretty much everything he does. Even if it's a trash movie, you're like, Keith David's at least pretty fun in whatever his role is. So with all that, I'm giving him a 60. Warren, what do we got for an average?
It gives Gabriel Byrne a 60.40, which is good enough for 26th, which has him in between Maya Rudolph and James Marsden.
Very fair.
That's very fair.
Mm-hmm.
Right on a 60.
Maybe not fair to Maya Rudolph.
Higher than I thought it was going to be.
All right, Warren, what does he got coming?
He's got a movie called Hamlet Revenant, which is a mix between Hamlet and the movie The Revenant. But it's a modern day version of Shakespeare's Hamlet.
It's Shakespeare, but with a bear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll see that.
Yeah, for sure.
Gabriel Byrne plays Hamlet, and the bear plays whatever I couldn't say Hamlet. The only thing I know about Hamlet is the movie Hamlet 2 with Steve Coogan.
Coogie.
This will be his second run at Hamlet.
Yeah.
That's all he has. I think, Hickman, he's got a book.
He mentioned in a couple interviews that he's in the process of writing a novel about the immigrant experience. So we'll see as he turns into an author if that turns out to be a good thing or not. Who knows?
I'll bet it'll be fucking interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
He's a talented writer, man.
The 5 actors that we're throwing onto the wheel for episode 33 are going to be Samantha Morton, Michael Clark Duncan, Jack Black, Christopher Fairbank, and Philip Seymour Hoffman. Who do we like? Who do we not like?
I mean, it's Jack Black, right? Am I?
Not Morton, not Fairbank.
Yeah.
Jack Black would be fun.
So would Philip Seymour Hoffman. He could be one of the higher scores for me.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be the first dead person we've covered, too. So that would be interesting.
Good call.
Jesus.
Wait, is that true?
What about
Sorry.
Michael Clark Duncan? He passed away, too.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
He passed away as well.
Yeah, he
Yep.
died 5 years ago.
We haven't reviewed a dead actor yet.
No?
Mm-mm.
Christopher Fairbank looks like he's dead, but I think he's still kicking.
He'd get a couple points from me because he's in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, he's in a bunch of like sci-fi kind of stuff. Not a lead actor, I don't think.
I'd love to do Jack Black, dude.
Much. Jack Black would be a blast.
Yeah.
Somebody would get to watch Cable Guy.
Nacho Libre.
Samantha Morton, I couldn't think of a movie she's in other than Minority Report. In America, I guess she was in.
She's in John Carter.
I have no idea who Samantha Morton is or Christopher Fairbank.
No clue.
Yeah, she's like the main precog in that movie. She has like a
Shaved head.
shaved head and a bald cap on the whole movie, so no, you probably wouldn't recognize her.
Nope, not doing it for me.
Both her and Hoffman are in Synecdoche, New York, which is
That's right.
pretty awesome but bizarre movie. So
Very
if we covered
bizarre
one of them,
movie.
we definitely would talk about that one. We'll let the wheel decide this one. It's not us.
Fuck the wheel.
The wheel better decide correct.
The wheel's got some making up to do with Warren. If it's Christopher Fairbank, he's going to lose his fucking mind. Oh my God.
Get your shit together, Will.
If it's Christopher Fairbank or Samantha Morton, you won't hear from Warren.
Fuck you. We're getting a new wheel.
You're getting a new co-host.
Our next guest for our April 8th episode will be Mike Rodmaker, and Mike generally chooses good actors, so use that information how you decide.
I thought the wheel chose. What the fuck?
Now, Rodmaker will be back. He was here from Mahershala.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So-
All right. That makes me feel a little better.
He's a good one. He's a photographer, filmmaker, and all-around interesting guy. So we'll bring him back, and we'll see how it goes. Episode 33.
He was a good guest.
Yes, he is. He's a good one. As always, you can find us on Twitter, Munson's at Movies. You can catch us on Instagram, Munson's at the Movies. Email us, munsonsatthemovies@gmail.com. Any final thoughts from the Munsons?
I don't have the balls. Did you hear that, Sleepy Joe? I don't have the balls. I'm brass balls. Bet London! I got balls to brass! Brass balls! I bet I'll kill anybody I want to kill.
Munson's out.
All right, let's go. Thank you for the education, gentlemen. We've just received a PhD in stupidity. Doctor, shall we?